Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Siphon TCG, and today I'm going to show you how to play Green White Mill and Lorcana. Green White Mill is a combo deck that tries to loop a whole new world to make their opponent draw their whole entire deck and end the game in an alternate win condition, which is not very common in this game. We choose primarily not to quest, but to control the board with things like Grab Your Sword, Smash, and Tinkerbell to control the opponent's board. While things like a whole new world allow us to draw into resources, also mill the opponent, and then we get to recur those effects with things like Do It Again, Doctor's Filet's cards to make things cheaper, and cards like Simba to constantly filter. Some of the other big cards in the deck that you won't commonly see is things like Beast to control opponent's items, Captain Hook to be a 5/5 challenger, which also allows you to shift on turn 3 and sing a whole new world, which is very, very powerful. Jasper is a very underrated card in this deck because every time he quests, you gain lore, and also you prevent your opponent from questing with one of their big threats with cards like Aladdin and cards like the Blue Bell in this format. Now, obviously, you don't have much protection against the cards like Aladdin here, but saying, hey, you're going to have to interact with me in that kind of way and not actually just purely quest and race really sets this deck apart from other decks. We also do get to have evasive creatures like Peter Pan, so those aggro evasive decks aren't safe from us. I get to start the die roll, and we start playing Peter Pan. And then we look at our options. We play Captain Hook because we really don't need to filter with Simba right now because we want to make sure we always have something to ink in our hand. If we had a whole new world in our hand, or we just have all inkables and we have a good non-inkable thing like swords or new world, we'll keep the Simba in our hand, pass over to the opponent. Opponent inks a Be Our Guest, so we know against a most likely a nice little grindy mid-range matchup. We're going to get the Mickey Mouse, as it's not going to do much in this current board state. Drop a genie, pass the turn. Our opponent's saying that we have a Captain Hook untapped is not likely to swing through our hey unless they just want some interaction, but honestly interacting in that kind of way isn't really good for us. They're going to leave food, and then they're going to pay 2 and play a Flynn Rider. Luckily, we get to follow up with a Smash to get around the discard effect of the Flynn Rider, and then we get to quest with the Genie and the Captain Hook because we can freely trade back into the hey. We'll pass it back. Our opponent thinks for a while about their play. They don't have a lot of good plays when it comes to interacting with our board. So they're going to ink a hey, go up to 3 mana, and drop another Flynn Rider. They're going to pass it back. Now you get to see the power of the 5 mana Captain Hook. We're going to ink our Simba because he's not very good in this board state. We get to shift the Captain Hook and play a Grab Your Sword on turn 4. And then quest with the Genie, pass it back to our turn. Opponent has nothing on, having 3 ink. We don't know how many inkables they have in the deck, so they will have to be very careful about what they choose to play out because a whole new world could just screw them over if they have lots of inkables in their hand and then they draw a bunch of non-inkables, or even vice versa. They don't want a lot of the same thing. Opponent's going to pay 1, play Lilo, which can quest for 2. We have a lot of things in our deck that can answer that, but they're going to play a Be Our Guest. They're going to look for a creature to put into their hand. Opponent thinks for a while and finally decides to put a Rapunzel into their hand. Rapunzel really good against Still with their ping damage. Opponent's going to put 1 in their inkwell and pass it back. We draw a Do It Again this turn with realistically the only target being a Grab Your Swords. And we can actually grab the swords right now and then just hold it. We don't have to play it right away. The only way it's bad is if we grab a whole new world in the next few turns, if we were to draw one. But honestly, I don't care, just sit on the Grab Your Swords for a while and just make it good, because if our opponent chooses to come into the board, we can just blow them out. If they choose to play around it, then they're just not doing what their deck wants to do. We'll quest the Captain Hook and Genie and pass it back. Opponent 4 mana, knowing have a Grab Your Swords, doesn't have a lot of good plays right now. Honestly, if they can just get a couple quests in or more some card advantage, that'd be pretty good. They're going to play Rapunzel on a no damage board, kind of wasting the Rapunzel, but just trying to get bodies that don't die to grab your swords. So I do understand that there. Well, the opponent most likely would quest for 2 here, but they know it'll immediately just die and we don't even have to grab your swords here. Because we're doing nothing, we can freely just go to the board because they're not going to be playing a board wipe, and we can just play Prince Eric and pass it back, knowing that we can trade with anything they choose to tap. Opponent is able to quest for 4 lore here. Again, there's no incentive for them to do that because they would just get 4 lore and then immediately lose all of their characters. They could look to trade or at least get some damage with Rapunzel, which they do, and they get to draw 2 off Rapunzel, one of the best cards in the entire game. Because they are going to be drawing extra cards, the actual true mill strategy of the deck is live right now. It's very easy. Once we notice that, we can just shift into playing the control deck and constantly controlling their board. Captain Hook being a 5/5, technically whenever he challenges can take out most things in one shot and also take a hit. And the challenger of Prince Eric coming in for 3 also is not shabby either. But we also do have the grab your sword, but we do have to be very, very careful with it because they're playing Rapunzel. But we draw the best possible thing we can draw here, and we draw Smash, so we can easily take out their whole entire board with this grab your swords and a very simple attack with our Genie or Prince Eric. We can quest for 1 and we pass it back. Our opponent yet again on an empty board, and all of our draws being super live except exactly like 1 card. We're in a pretty good spot. We can quest for 3, so our opponent would just lose a race if they tried to race us at this point. They need to get us to interact with them, but because we're so far ahead, we don't actually have to. We draw 3-mana Tinkerbell, which is completely fine here. We're going to quest for 3 and simply pass it back. Our opponent must do something. They cannot just freely let us quest every single turn. Opponent on 5 ink chooses just to quest with their Mad Hatter for 3. Thinking about what to do with their Leafy when the card's in their hand. Our opponent will then choose to make this very awkward for the live recording because, dear God, I have this on time 2 speed, by the way, keep that in mind. Opponent is still thinking, by the way, literally time 2 speed. Breaking the 4th wall, let's go baby, breaking the 4th wall. Our opponent plays a Be Our Guest, searching for another creature, probably looking for a Rapunzel, see if they can trade here, but riskily the Rapunzel would only be good if he attacks Leafy into Prince Eric. They find a cat, play a cat, and they pass it back. We find a 3-mana Mickey. Honestly, inking it or establishing it, neither one is really bad. Because inking it would allow us to play every card in our deck, which would be really nice. Which we do find Our Lady. But unfortunately, we do have to discard. I am going to choose to discard the Mickey here because if we draw an inkable card, we can actually establish a Lady and get another Grab Your Swords. Which would be really good into their board. I could just choose to be aggro and quest here, but I can actually get the best of both worlds. I can control their board and still ink. If you can do that, it just raises your percentage because yes, just tapping out every single turn obviously would be really good, but if something random were to go wrong, not that there's many things here, I just don't want to leave that into a possibility, so I just want to be able to do everything here. Opponent is going to play 2 things. We have a Cusco finally hitting the board. We're going to choose a Shift Tinkerbell, get some ping damage everywhere, banish the Lilo. Now other worlds are oyster with how we want to establish. Crashing in the Genie into the cat is pretty good because the Genie is just a 1-quester, not too important, and then we can just quest with everything. Pass it back, present lethal for next turn. So now, yet again, this forces the opponent to interact with us, the combo deck. The combo deck is the one that's forcing the interaction and being the control deck and being the combo deck. So we're actually attacking our enemy on all fronts. Opponent's going to try to put a Cusco in, not trading it importantly. Play a Mad Hatter. We do find our inkable so we can establish Our Lady. Our Lady can get us back to Grab Your Swords. So if we can get some ping damage going, we're looking pretty good. We're going to sing grab your swords with Captain Hook, putting 2 damage on the header and taking out the Cusco, and going up to 18. And with that, our opponent just concedes. They have no further way to